What happens when the person wearing the rose and enforcing the law is the one accused of breaking it?
Yeah, it is an incredible question.
Right. Well, 12 jurors just gave us an answer. They convicted former Milwaukee County Judge Hannah Dugan of a federal felony.
A really serious charge.
Exactly. And it was for actively helping an undocumented migrant evade FBI and ICE agents right inside her own courthouse.
Which is just, I mean, it's unprecedented.
It really is. So our mission today for this deep dive is to unpack the thrilling play-by-play of what actually went down on April 18th.
Right, the timeline is wild.
We are also going to explore the fierce legal battle over the definition of just one single word. And, we'll explain how this local Wisconsin courthouse drama could actually trigger a massive legal showdown at the United States Supreme Court.
I mean, we are looking at a situation that tests the absolute limits of a judge's power.
Yeah, it's like watching a referee suddenly tackle a player on the field.
Right.
Like, how often do we see the neutral umpire of a courtroom get pulled into the criminal crosshairs like this?
Almost never. I mean, it tests the foundation of the entire system.
Because of the power we give them.
Right, exactly. We grant judges an incredible amount of discretion to manage their courtrooms, but that discretion relies entirely on an expectation of absolute judicial neutrality.
Right, they have to be down the middle.
Right. So when a judge steps off the bench and directly intervenes in a federal law enforcement operation, that neutrality just shatters. The system basically short circuits.
Wow. Okay, so I want to get right into the physical anatomy of how this evasion actually happened.
Yeah, the physical layout is key.
Because visualizing this sequence of events is really the only way to understand the massive legal fallout. We're talking about a highly specific physical maneuver through a government building.
Oh, absolutely. The floor plan of the Milwaukee courthouse is basically the star witness in this case.
Okay, so let's map it out for everyone. It's April 18th. Federal agents from ICE, the FBI, and I think a few other agencies are physically waiting in the public hallway.
Right outside Judge Dugan's courtroom.
Right. And they are there with a clear objective, which is to arrest a Mexican national named Eduardo Flores Ruiz the moment his local hearing finishes.
Which, just for context, is standard operating procedure.
Oh, really? Just waiting in the hall?
Yeah, federal agents routinely wait in the public corridors of state or local courthouses. They do it to take individuals into federal custody once their local legal matters are wrapped up.
Okay, so the hallway is fair game.
Right. The courtroom itself is the judge's domain, obviously, but the public hallway is generally treated as open ground for law enforcement.
Okay, got it. But Judge Dugan doesn't let that standard arrest play out.
No, she does not.
According to the prosecution's evidence, she actively intervenes. She actually leaves her courtroom, goes out into the hallway, and orders the federal agents away from her doors.
And not just away, she redirects them.
Right. She tells them they need to go speak with the chief judge, and the chief judge's office is located in a completely different area of the building.
Which is a huge move. She essentially uses her authority to create a diversion.
By sending them on a wild goose chase.
Pretty much. By ordering them to see the chief judge, she effectively removes the agents from the immediate physical vicinity of their target.
Wow. And so while those agents are walking away, just following the instructions of a judge, Dugan goes back inside her courtroom and puts a plan into motion.
This is where it gets really tactical.
Yeah, she escorts Flores Ruiz to a non-public jury door. And for anyone listening who hasn't been in a courthouse, these doors are heavily restricted.
Highly restricted.
Right. They're meant strictly for jurors to enter and exit without interacting with the public.
Yeah.
They are definitely not meant for defendants trying to sneak out of the building.
Exactly. And this is where the security cameras pick up the story.
The eye in the sky.
Right. The footage shows Flores Ruiz and his public defender stepping through that restricted jury door.
Yeah.
Now, normally, that specific path would lead them to a flight of stairs, which takes them to a completely different floor of the building.
But they don't take the stairs?
Nope.
The surveillance video shows them bypassing the stairs completely. Instead, they use a secondary door that dumps them right back out into the public hallway.
Just feet away from Dugan's main entrance?
Right. It's crazy. By threading through this restricted area, they temporarily bypass the exact spot where the agents had been standing just moments before.
It is a deliberate physical workaround. I mean, the agents eventually realize they've been bypassed, of course.
Yeah, they figured it out.
A chase ensues, and they actually do manage to arrest him outside the building. But that temporary evasion inside the courthouse was successful.
Okay, so 12 jurors heard all of this. They watched the surveillance tapes. They reviewed the floor plans, and they convicted Judge Dugan of felony obstruction of proceeding before a U.S. governmental agency.
But there is a catch.
Yeah, a big one. They acquitted her of a separate misdemeanor charge for concealment, and I have to push back on that outcome for a second.
It definitely sounds contradictory at first glance.
It really does.
Right.
Wait, the jury decided she didn't conceal him, but she did obstruct the agents. How do those two ideas coexist in the same courtroom?
It's a great question.
It sounds like they threaded an incredibly tiny, almost invisible legal needle here. Because, practically speaking, if you reroute a guy through a restricted back door to help him avoid the people looking for him, you're hiding him, right?
Well, to a layperson, yes. Rerouting someone is hiding them.
Exactly.
But juries don't get to use our everyday conversational definitions. They operate on very strict legal checklists.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sure. To prove a charge of concealment, prosecutors generally have to prove the defendant took a specific action to hide an individual from public view.
Which she sort of did with the jury door.
Yes, but the defense likely argued that routing him into another highly trafficked, camera-monitored public hallway doesn't meet the legal threshold for concealing a person from the world.
Oh, I see. So because he was still out in the open, just in a different spot, the jury couldn't legally check the box for concealment.
Precisely. They couldn't prove he was truly hidden. But obstruction uses a completely different legal checklist.
Right.
Obstruction simply asks, did the defendant take purposeful action to hinder or delay federal agents from executing their duties?
And sending them to the chief judge definitely hindered them.
Exactly. By diverting the agents to the chief judge's office and simultaneously opening a restricted door for the target, the jury found overwhelming evidence to check every single box for obstruction.
Wow. They really followed the exact letter of the law there.
They did.
But that strict adherence to definitions is a double-edged sword, though. Dugan was convicted based on the definition of obstruction. But right now, her lawyers realize something huge.
They found a potential loophole.
Yeah. They realize that if they can redefine a different word in that statute, the whole felony conviction falls apart.
And the word they are targeting is proceeding.
Right, because Dugan was convicted of obstructing a proceeding before a U.S. governmental agent.
Oh, exactly.
So her defense team went back to the federal judge, overseeing her trial, Judge Lynn Adelman, and formally asked him to throw out the jury's conviction.
Which is a bold move.
Very bold. And their wild card, their primary weapon, is a ruling from an entirely different appeals court based in Virginia.
Yeah, the defense is utilizing a classic legal strategy here. They are searching the country for any legal precedent that interprets the statute in their favor.
And they found one. The Virginia court ruled that obstructing an ICE arrest warrant does not necessarily qualify as interfering with a federal proceeding.
Right.
I need you to explain the mechanics of that argument, because on the surface, an arrest sounds exactly like a legal proceeding.
It does, but it all comes down to the origin of the paperwork.
Okay.
There is a massive legal difference between a judicial warrant and an administrative warrant.
How so?
Well, when police raid a house, for example, they usually have a judicial warrant. That is a document signed by a judge after they've reviewed evidence.
Which is undeniably part of a legal proceeding, like an active court case.
Yes, exactly. But an ICE arrest warrant is often an administrative warrant.
Meaning what?
It means it is essentially an internal agency document. It's signed by an immigration officer, not a judge.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the Virginia Appeals Court looked at that distinction and argued that an administrative memo from an agency doesn't carry the same weight as a formal judicial proceeding.
I get it now. It's like the difference between your boss writing a memo telling you to do something and a federal judge officially ordering it.
That is a perfect analogy, yes.
Okay, that definitely clarifies why the defense has a legitimate-sounding argument. They are essentially telling Judge Adelman in Wisconsin, look, if an ICE administrative arrest isn't legally a proceeding in Virginia, it shouldn't be a proceeding here.
Right.
And if there was no proceeding to obstruct in the first place, she didn't commit the crime.
It is a really clever, highly technical argument, but Judge Adelman and the federal prosecutors completely dismantled it.
Yeah, Adelman refused to overrule the 12 jurors.
He shut it down.
He stated that reading the Virginia case so broadly as to suggest all ICE operations are exempt from being considered federal proceedings just goes against the plain language of the statute.
He basically applied a common-sense legal standard.
Which we don't always see.
True. But he noted that when Congress wrote the law against obstructing an agency proceeding, they clearly intended to protect federal agents who are just trying to execute their core duties.
Makes sense.
So Edelman ruled that twisting the definition to exclude ICE arrests ignores the reality of what the agency actually does.
He also pointed out that the Virginia ruling happened in a different circuit under different circumstances, which brings up a huge structural issue.
It really does.
It sounds like a sports rulebook problem.
Yeah.
Like a referee in one league interprets a foul completely differently than a referee in another league.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, if the law is federal, why doesn't a ruling in Virginia automatically apply to a judge in Wisconsin?
Well, that structural quirk is actually a feature, not a bug, of our federal court system. Yeah. Below the Supreme Court, the United States is divided into geographic regions known as circuits. So Virginia sits in the Fourth Circuit, Wisconsin is in the Seventh Circuit.
Oh, so they operate in parallel but totally separate lanes.
Exactly. When the appeals court in the Fourth Circuit makes a ruling, it establishes a binding rule for the states within its specific boundaries.
But not outside of them.
Right. It holds no binding authority over the Seventh Circuit in Wisconsin. Judge Edelman is totally free to review the Virginia ruling and simply say, I respect my colleagues, but their interpretation of federal law is incorrect.
Which sets a ticking legal time bomb. Because Dugan's defense team is obviously preparing to appeal Edelman's decision to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals in Chicago.
And that is where things get really intense. If the Chicago Appeals Court upholds Dugan's conviction, they will formalize what we call a circuit split.
Okay, let's break down the stakes of a circuit split, because that term gets thrown around a lot in the news.
Yeah.
What exactly does it mean here?
A circuit split occurs when two distinct federal appeals courts issue directly contradicting rulings on the exact same federal law.
So they literally disagree on what the law is.
Exactly. The Fourth Circuit in Virginia says an ICE arrest isn't necessarily a proceeding, but the Seventh Circuit in Chicago says it absolutely is.
So wait, you're telling me that right now, if you cross state lines, the exact same physical action could potentially make you a convicted felon in Wisconsin, but leave you completely in the clear in Virginia?
Yes. You would have different parts of the country enforcing conflicting interpretations of a federal felony.
That is wild. That completely shatters the concept of equal justice under the law. You can't just have the definition of a felony changed because you drove a few hours east.
No, you can't. And the United States Supreme Court agrees with you.
I would hope so.
Yeah, the Supreme Court hates circuit splits. When different regions apply federal law unequally, the entire justice system loses its legitimacy.
It makes the law look like a joke.
Exactly. The Supreme Court exists specifically to step into these geographic disagreements, resolve the conflict, and establish one unified standard for all 50 states.
So this local courthouse drama over a judge redirecting federal agents to a different hallway could literally force the Supreme Court to legally define what an ICE operation is for the entire country.
It really is the perfect catalyst for their intervention.
The ripple effects of that are just staggering.
Yeah.
But, stepping back from the high-level Supreme Court theory for a second, there is a very grounded human element to this story, too.
That's definitely.
It's really about public trust. If we look at the historical context we pulled for this deep dive, the system relies on judges holding a unique, almost sacred role.
Right.
They enjoy absolute immunity for the decisions they make while sitting on the bench, specifically so they can rule without fear of retaliation. But Dugan wasn't on the bench, she was in a hallway.
And that's the crucial difference. The immunity protects judicial decisions, not physical interference.
Which goes back to the referee analogy.
Exactly. A judge is meant to be a neutral umpire. They aren't prosecutors aggressively hunting defendants, and they aren't defense attorneys trying to orchestrate escapes.
They have to stay out of the fray.
Right. The public's confidence in the rule of law completely depends on the belief that judges enforce the laws as written, rather than acting on their personal beliefs regarding immigration or anything else.
Because the moment a judge decides they can actively interfere with law enforcement outside their courtroom doors, the public trust just evaporates.
It invites total chaos. When judges begin picking and choosing which federal agencies deserve to operate in their buildings, or they actively hinder federal officers, the system breaks down.
The expectation has to be absolute neutrality.
It has to be.
And we have to remember, for you listening, this isn't just an abstract textbook hypothetical. Sentencing hasn't happened yet. A former judge faces the very real statistical probability of spending time in a federal prison.
It's a heavy reality.
12 ordinary citizens looked at her actions and labeled her a felon. But I have to ask, does punishing her threaten the independence a judge needs? I mean, a judge has to manage a chaotic building.
That's a fair point.
They can't be terrified of an FBI prosecution every time they make an administrative choice about who uses which door, right?
And that tension is exactly why this case is so pivotal. Judges absolutely need the authority to manage their dockets, maintain order in the halls, and protect the rights of everyone in their courthouse.
Right.
But a local courthouse is not a sovereign nation.
Wow, yeah.
A judge's administrative authority doesn't grant them a license to subvert federal law enforcement operations. The jury reviewed the security footage and decided Dugan crossed the line from managing a building to actively obstructing justice.
It kind of proves the system will hold its own accountable when the evidence demands it.
Exactly. Even the referee isn't above the rules of the game.
It is such a delicate balance of power, and it's clearly going to be tested in the appeals courts for months or maybe even years.
Oh, definitely.
Well, let's recap the incredible journey of this deep dive. We started with a local Wisconsin judge taking active physical steps, ordering federal agents away, and opening restricted doors to divert an arrest.
A truly wild start.
Yeah. Then we analyzed a split jury verdict that really highlighted the strict, checklist nature of criminal charges. We dug into a fierce legal debate over whether an administrative ICE warrant counts as a federal proceeding.
The battle over one word.
Right. And finally, we mapped out a looming circuit split that could force the Supreme Court to establish the ultimate limits of a judge's power.
It's a lot to take in, but when we build these grand courthouses, we expect them to be sanctuaries of order and neutrality.
We do.
But if local judges and federal agents are treating the hallways like a tactical battleground, we have to leave you with this question: who is actually in charge of the building when local ideals and federal enforcement inevitably collide?
That is definitely something to mull over. Well, thank you so much for coming along on this deep dive with us today. Keep questioning the world around you, and we will catch you next time.